What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Thee CrazyFaceUno Podcast, where everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. What's your story? If you'd like to support the show and help us tell more stories like the one you're about to hear, please visit CrazyFaceUno.com today. There, you can purchase items from our online store and donate. As always, I'm your host, Shane McNeely, and boy, are you in for a treat today. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest today. Please welcome Andrew Herbert. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, Shane. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
It's more my honor than I think your honor.
I don't know, man. I'm always so grateful when I have guests on. I feel like, it's long form. It's an hour and a half, and I don't know. I just feel like very grateful when people are like, yeah, I'm willing to give you an hour and a half of my time. And I know that time is very valuable. So I'm always just very appreciative.
That's an awesome way to look at it. I've always wanted to be on a podcast. I love podcasts. So
yeah,
I'm super grateful to be on a podcast.
Heck yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here. Dude, I have started a new thing, and maybe I should give people a little more heads up on this question, just to give people more time to think about it before they come on the show. But it's new. And so let's start off. Take as much time as you need. But what are three words that you would use to describe yourself?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
Words.
Just hitting hard right out of the gates.
Exactly. And we're not editing this out either.
No, this is just one take, man. Don't screw up.
All right. I will say I like to be creative.
Yeah.
So we'll go with creative as one.
Okay.
Introspective right now. That's like a big thing right now for me, is to be inwardly thinking and, not too much in my head, but just trying to digest and come up with who Andrew Herbert actually is right now in this time and space. Sure. And a third one word that describes me.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
I'm going to go with, it's two words. We'll
cool.
hyphenate it. It's
right.
Disney fan. Disney fan.
fan.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've worked on and off for the company for a long time, so that just seems very fitting.
Cool. Well, that might lead right into, I like that. I want to start off, it's a story, it's a life story. I've got, some little deeper questions at the end. If you've been listening to the podcast in recent months and episodes, you'll know I've got these like four, for the listeners, I've got these like four questions at the end. They get a little more intense and a little more, in depth and a little more like introspective. So might fit right into your number two. But I love the idea of changing. It's a conversation I've had in a couple podcast episodes, but I don't know. There's more to people than the work we do, like our job. And but yet I still put as the title of, my podcasts are kind of like, it'll be Andrew Herbert. And honestly, I don't know what you're doing these days, but it'll be like your job title, And I don't know. I think it's cool and important to see people through different lenses, and not just about putting complete value in what you do for work as, the marker of who you are, but there's more to the individual and to the person than the work you do and the industry that you're in. And so I'm trying to incorporate a little bit more into it. So thanks for indulging me in those three words that describe you.
I completely agree with what you're saying. In fact, I'm in a transition right now with my career, and that was I kind of, for the audience here, pushed back on being one of your guests for a little bit of time. I put you off for a couple months, and I sincerely apologize for that.
No way.
But it was more because I didn't view myself as being successful in my career, and therefore worthy to be on your podcast.
Yeah.
But I love your mission in the sense that you are wanting to give a story to everyone. And it's something that I truly believe in. And so as I'm wrapping my head around this, it's like, well, if I believe everyone has a story, why do I not believe my story is worthy of your podcast?
Yeah.
So, that is why I agreed to come onto your show, is to talk about things bigger than just career.
And I love that. And I'm excited to get into it. And honestly, that's my number one pushback is your, kind of the way you push back is I've had several people that I have like musicians that I know that I've like reached out to. I have other people that I've reached out to that have like really cool things going on in their life. And they're like, I just don't feel like I have a story to tell. And, similar comments, that you've kind of expressed and like worried about the story that they have to tell. And I don't even know how to respond sometimes because I like deeply, truly believe that everybody has a story. And, my thing, and, I've talked with my wife about this, but I'm like, man, like, just give me a chance. Give me an hour and a half, and I promise we'll find a story. Like, it's just, this Absolutely. Process and the way that I kind of go through it is we talk about current day, how we met, how we know each other, what you're doing, what life has in store for you and right now, and then we throw it back to childhood and we work our way back up to current day, and I think that it's cool because every single person, we've all gone through it. It may look completely different from person to person, but we've all gone through these stages of life, right? We were born. We went through childhood. We went through that adolescent stage, and we went through that post-high school, stage, and sometimes that included college and university, and sometimes people didn't do that, and they went a different path. But nonetheless, here they are, and they're in whatever stage of life they are, and I think that that's the uniting front. That's the part that unites us all together, that says, you know what, we all do have a story, and though that process and though that, that path of life is different, it's all the same as well, and we've all had to go through it, and it's just kind of cool to see and to see different perspectives and to hear people's success stories. And I think we're all successful because we've made it to who we are today, and though, man, I'm right there with you. Like I've got the self-sabotage and that, what is it? The
inner critic.
Yeah. Where I'm like, man, like defining success, and do I think I'm successful? And I struggle with that too. Like I don't feel successful most of the days.
Are you judging yourself by the standards of society? Personally, I think you're successful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just for the fact that you have put yourself out there to make a podcast, a movement. You have your store. I was looking through all the lists of, I've known you've been doing the CrazyFaceUno podcast for a long time, but I didn't realize, I think you have over 80 episodes, and which is incredible.
Yeah. By the time this podcast comes out, there will be over 90 podcasts that have been dropped or put out there that are alive and available for everyone to listen to. It's kind of crazy. I was doing 3 a week there for a while, and I've kind of backed off in 2020 here, and I'm just going to do, start off for now, do 2 a week, and I've got a few other things I kind of want to like integrate into, the platform, and I really use Instagram. It seems to be one of the main, platforms that I use quite a bit. Obviously Facebook, and I have Twitter as well, and just kind of sticking to those, but Instagram's really where, I don't know, the biggest audience is, and kind of people tune in, and I want to get more into videos. So, I've talked about it on some of the past podcasts and whatnot, but I want to make more videos, shorter videos of people, these different questions that I asked throughout the podcast, but just getting little clips and bits of people's lives. And I don't know. It's all new to me, man. I'm always trying to do something and come up with something, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those different things that we've been involved with together. But yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's cool. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, if nothing else, for sure, you can define your success in this from the perseverance of continuing to go in the face of the uncertainty of where this journey will end.
True. Yeah, and I love what you said, like defining success too, I mean, it's so true because it's funny. I've had this conversation. I talked for a couple hours with one of my buddies last week, and we were talking, and he's like, well, it's like, what do you define success? And he talked about a friend that's like, well, he's got all this money. He's got more money than I'll ever see. But, his relationships are not well. And, like his life is just, the quality of his life isn't necessarily awesome. But financially, this individual sees himself as successful. And I'm like, yeah, see, I don't see that as successful. Like, yeah, money is it's one piece, it's a marker, and potentially, but it's more than that. And knowing what society claims as successful, I don't even know what society says is successful, but regardless, it's like what I see as successful. The problem is when you have an idea of success, or you just say like, well, I haven't ever made it there, but you don't even know what your marker of success is. And I think if I'm being vulnerable and up front, I don't know if I know what my marker of success really is in life in general, period. And so I think it's an interesting thing that you brought up.
Along the way, I'm sure you'll figure out your marker for success. But, I think circling back to what you're saying about what is successful in society, I think people in general, we look for the black or white answer, just a clear cut, no gray area. So for successful markers, you're looking at, we know that making over $100,000, making six figures, that term six figures is a marker of success. And that's just easy to say. You can't, and that's just so easily boiled down. You can say that, regurgitate that so fast.
Yeah.
But it takes time to say, well, I'm finding success in the three pillars of life, your mind, body, and soul, in these areas, and having to go in depth and discuss that with someone, and not have just a 2-minute quick answer for what success is, or even less than 2 minutes.
I agree. I'm writing that down. I don't know. It's like really good. Mind, body, soul is like the three pillars of success or of life, and I think that's really.
I guess throw in your career or purpose. Let's not you throw that into soul or wherever you want to put it. But if you're activating your mind, your body, and your soul, then you're going to be generally happier.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if you can reach that, find joy in all of those three places, the mind, the body, and the soul, or find, happiness, contentment. Happiness is a interesting one too, but I think that
I like joy.
Yeah, I like joy too. It's different. Happiness seems limited and fluttering, and it comes and goes, but joy is
exactly. You're not always going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because you're going to face the challenges along your journey in whatever path you take. But if you find the joy on being along the journey and find the joy in the challenges and overcoming them, I think that will lead to the happiness.
True. Perfectly said. Yeah. Well said. Dude, let's let the listeners know we met like so many others of my guests through Invisible Children, the nonprofit, and formerly in San Diego. So we were in San Diego. You were an intern, right? You were I
was the media marketing intern.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this because I looked through all your episodes. I I'll be honest, I've only listened to one so far just
It's
because
all
of
good, man.
finding it on platforms. But I listened to the Timmy Harris, and it really took me back. I don't want to retread for your audience across everything.
It's all good.
Invisible Children. But yeah, you were on tour fall 2010.
Yep.
I was in the office, so we only crossed paths for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you were in the office for Coney 2012 when I came back to help out in the office.
Yes.
It was only supposed to be for 2 weeks, but I kept calling back home and telling work that I couldn't make it back. Invisible Children just so needed me.
Yeah.
I so needed to be in San Diego that it turned into like 2 months.
Yeah. And man, that was a fun time.
Interesting, crazy, fun, all mashed into one.
Whew. Yeah, that was a wild time for sure. For sure. Yeah, you worked in the office. Yeah, I just remember because you were working with Mr. Cameron Woodward, right?
Yep. The first time around, I was with Cameron
Yeah.
Woodward, and second time, I was in the communications office. So I worked with Carl and Jed and Krista.
That's right.
That whole gang.
Yeah. Yeah, good times. What are you, I know you said you're kind of in transition, but what are you up to these days? What's life?
I am, see, this is why I put off doing your podcast, but in being transparent and vulnerable, I'm looking for a job.
Cool.
I'm in that dredge of searching for the next move. My last job was a contractor role, and it's a wonderful opportunity. If I could go back, I would.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where you sign on to be a temporary worker, and the time finished up.
Yep.
But I was doing community engagement for, I guess I can say the company, even though they're not a sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah, it's all good.
Right. I was with Capital One.
Okay.
And
cool.
I was putting volunteer events on for the employees across Louisiana.
Nice.
So working with countless nonprofits, and I'm from New Orleans, so that was mainly where when people think of Louisiana who aren't from here, you're thinking New Orleans, but we're going to Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Shreveport, Monroe.
Nice.
Putting on events.
Yeah.
And it was super fun, and thought it would be a great transition once the contract ended into a nonprofit doing marketing or working in development.
Mm-hmm.
That would make the connections, and as life does, it hasn't panned out.
Yeah, that is just part of life.
Exactly.
What would you say and maybe this is something you're still, exploring too, but what was the industry that you're interested in, or the type of work, or?
That's in flux right now.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, I've been taking this time, especially in the past couple months, once 2020 rolled in, to truly take stock of who I am and where I want to focus all of my time and energy, because my dreams over the years, going from high school to now, have completely changed and evolved. Some things have kind of stayed the same, and then in the back of my mind, you're thinking, okay, what does everything have in common? Where's the overlap?
Yeah. And
can I have the ultimate dream and create it?
Yeah.
And have the confidence in myself to create something.
Yeah.
And so that's just that thing that I'm wrestling with right now.
Yeah. I've been there too. I've been doing that as well. And even in the midst of this, man, I am constantly checking in with myself, of being like, am I going down the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Do you find yourself getting kind of overwhelmed with that idea of trying to figure out? Do you feel like you have to find the career?
I think so.
Yeah.
And, it's tough. I think sometimes you get bogged down by this idea that you are one thing. You're going to be this one thing for the rest of your life, kind of like a doctor.
Yeah.
And maybe doctor's not the best example because you have to commit so much time before you are a professional. And so therefore, once you get to that end goal, it's kind of, you don't really want to give up and say, you know what, all those bills, all that time in medical school, forget about it. I'm going to go be a surfer in San Diego.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a professional surfer. But I do think we as people see ourselves as this one thing instead of something that evolves over time and can change and can be a contradiction of what we were just a year ago.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
No, tell me more.
Yeah, you'll have to check him out. Check out some of his stuff because I feel like it's going to be very, you can really apply it to like where you're at in life, especially. But he has this one idea that's really stuck with me and it's really permeated my brain. And I'm 32, and when I look at I look at my age, I look at where I'm at, and you look at other people that are similar age to me, and you're like, oh man, it seems like everybody's got it all figured out. And but he talks about how he's like, man, some of you people that are like 30s, early 30s, whatever, it's like you've got lives to live, like the average age, you live till, let's say 100, by the time we get there, man, I've got like 2 more lives to live. Like it's crazy to think about and how we've spent all this time to get to where we are today. And at times I feel like I've felt that it's like I've missed my opportunities to go do what I want to do, but thinking about what he's saying and thinking about like, man, I have at least another life to live, 2 more lives to live. I have 60 more years in me. Like I got this, and it's never too late to kind of like figure that out. And I don't know, that's really stuck with me and something I've kept in the back of my head. And it seems like it's maybe something that might be useful for you as well.
Absolutely. See, I'm actually older than you. I'm a couple years older than you.
Sure.
And I view the same thing. You go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, you're seeing people in their careers. And of course, people only post the best parts of their lives.
Right.
Certainly everyone is struggling, but you're looking at these social media feeds and you're going, wow, I'm not going on these amazing vacations.
Yeah.
I'm not this successful. I'm not married. You're married, know? So I'm looking at that saying, wow, like I've missed the boat here. And, but there is time. And I think it's really, your podcast medium, what you're doing with the stories, I think it's important. It's impactful for me to hear that you think the same thing, and it tells me that I'm not alone in my feelings, because people don't have these intimate conversations too often.
Right.
So it is awesome, as a podcast fan, and to hear stories like this, and to know that you're not the only one struggling with these feelings.
Totally. And I it is really, honestly, I love that, because one of my favorite questions is like, when was the last time you sat down with one of your, let's say best friend or family, right? And talked about for an hour and a half, you talked about your life growing up and the ins and outs of you, and just the focus was on like your story and your life. And I'm guessing now is probably one of the first times in a really long time that you've had that conversation. And it's just not a common, like, we don't put ourselves in those scenarios. Yeah, we might share like little bits and pieces, right? But it takes time, and it's just an interesting platform and an interesting way about talking about life and talking about where you're at and the things you've gone through and been a part of. Yeah,
it is interesting. I think the people that you're closest to, especially the people that you're talking to on a more frequent basis, you're more likely to talk about just the everyday life instead of the deep personal issues that you're having. That's just the quick snapshots.
Yep.
Like right now, like I can tell you, yesterday I texted my best friend who, would be most likely the best man in my wedding.
Yeah.
When that day comes, we're talking about coronavirus.
Right.
That is, everyone's talking about COVID-19, but I can't tell you the last time I've had a deep personal conversation with him.
Yeah. 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 It's crazy. It really is. It's funny to think about, like, the things that we talk about, and then it makes you like kind of go like, well, what do I talk about with my friends? And I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about. And as I watch, I've really business and pleasure maybe for both, like, information, and it's just enjoyable, but just different YouTube channels, different podcasts myself, and like what kind of sets some of these different I don't know, these different channels, these different content producers, what makes them different, what makes me want to tune in, what makes people interested. And I think there's a piece of this that's got a connection to some of the popular items and channels and modes of listening, watching, whatever. But it's just interesting. It's just something that kind of takes you out of your comfort zone, and when you can kind of be vulnerable and open up, and just an interesting concept, an interesting piece.
For me, at least, the people that I follow and I truly want to tune in week after week or whenever their content drops are the people who are vulnerable and are willing to put a spotlight of humanity on whatever they're focusing on.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel connected to the larger whole, that, the questions that you have about yourself, about life, about where you're going, you somehow see yourself in their content.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think we're constantly kind of like checking in and looking at, it's like the societal pressure in some ways. We're constantly like checking in and being like, how do I measure up? And I think that that's kind of what we've been talking about, when we're around the same age at this point in time, maybe, but both of us, for me, yes, I'm married, so that's something that you see. Most of your friends probably are all married. Most of mine are as well. And then on top of that, then it's like I've gone through the next phase, which is most of my friends, or a lot of my friends, have kids, or they're on to their second kid. You go through the phase of seeing your friends go through marriages and then divorces, and it's just an interesting stage of life. But we're constantly trying to like see how we measure up. This is another thing that Gary Vee talks about in a lot of his posts and a lot of his speeches. It's like, stop comparing yourself to other people. And it's so easier said than done. But I don't know. I think when you can find who you are and just own that and rock that and enjoy that and find joy in who you are, and I think
create your own measure of success.
Yeah. And he talks about it on both sides, right? Of like, man, yeah, people tell him all the time, like, you're doing such a great thing, you've changed my life. And he's like, it's not that you're rude and just be like, don't address it. You say thank you, but you just can't hold that. There's only so much of that. You can't put your stock, you can't put your value in that, because that's fleeting as well. And so like the negatives and the positives, it's like you address them, it's thank you, and then you move on and the next thing, I don't know. He's got some good content out there, so definitely check him out. I'll send him your way afterwards. But yeah,
I will definitely check him out. Maybe we put a link to your favorite stuff in the podcast description for today for the audience.
For sure. Yeah, we'll throw a little Gary Vee. Maybe he'll give the podcast a listen.
Yeah, and then Gary will sponsor your show to drive his viewership and audience.
He needs it. He needs some love from CrazyFaceUno. Well, dude, let's we've talked about kind of current day, kind of figuring things out, and let's throw it back. Let's go to childhood. Let's talk about it. What was your childhood like? How would you describe childhood for you?
And to me, I hate to use this word because I had a feeling this question would come up, and I was prepared. And for me, I would say it was unremarkable, and that's a terrible word to use, but and maybe there's something better, but there's nothing that stands out as like this was a big challenge to overcome, or I just had a 80s to 90s childhood, growing up and watching Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles on TV and going to school and just being from a middle class family, which is beautiful in its own right, that there was nothing of significant challenge.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, wow, like I didn't have to overcome anything. I wasn't, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it makes sense. I mean, you didn't have you had privilege growing up. You enjoyed a normal childhood.
Well, and I guess in the context of stories, where are the stories? And it's like, well, they were all on the TV. They were all, those are the stories. I mean, certainly, like, I have stories and memories from family vacations and and going to Disney World. Mm-hmm. And, like my mom has had health issues, but, they weren't to the point where I wasn't so concerned, where I wasn't like, she's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I came from this background of, enough privilege where I'm like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about this. In hindsight, maybe I should have been more concerned, but it's like, oh, she's having heart surgery. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. But I think, that's a good thing, right? I mean, that's what, as a parent or as an adult, when you look at kids, like, that's what you want. You don't want them to worry, right? Exactly. You want them to have a life that they get to just enjoy and be a part of and not have to worry and stress about those things. So I think that's
being a child.
Yeah. What were some of the things you were interested in as a child? Obviously you mentioned Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles, but what else?
I was very into my imagination as a kid. I was an only child for 12 years of my life. Then my brother came around and just completely ruined that all. That dream was shattered when he was born, but no, he's great. He's in college now.
So one brother? Just one?
Just the one brother. Just the one brother with a 12-year age difference. So it's been a while. We're finally starting to see a little bit eye to eye.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit of a challenge, feeling like you're not as close to your brother as you should be. But there you have to remind yourself there is that age difference, there's that perspective difference. And
how old were you when he was born?
12 and a half, somewhere up in there.
Yeah. Nice.
I would have been in 6th grade.
Okay. My mom was similar. So her brother, there's 10 years between the two of them. So yeah, it's interesting. Oh, wow. Yeah. Like with that big of a gap is always kind of interesting, right? It's like having, yeah, I don't know. It's like
finding that common ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well, and I
have
a stepbrother and sister and I feel similarly, they're getting older, and it's like now that they're getting older, I feel like we're finding more things that we have in common, and we have conversations and whatnot. But when you're in high school, when you're in college, and it's just hard to build a strong relationship in a sense when, at least for me, like I didn't live in the same house. Like we didn't, we had some similar interests, like, my stepbrother wrestled and, played sports and stuff that I was interested in. But yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. You just don't have those bonds like you do with a peer or with somebody that's a little closer in age, and those things you've gone through together. And then as you get a little older and you have some of those more similar things you go through in life, and you get to experience those together.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, you have a little bit of guilt for that, because you feel like you should be closer. You should, again, judging yourself from everyone else, what their lives are like. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a close relationship with your siblings. I mean, certainly they're family, and you only have your family, so and you only have so much time. Make the best and most of it. But it is just a fact that there was a big age difference, and here I am trying to find myself. Now I went to San Diego for a little bit when I guess you would have been in middle school into high school, somewhere up in there. I did another short internship, so I was away. So it is difficult to make that connection. Yeah,
totally, completely. Were there anything else? Were you interested in, athletics, music, nature? You said TV, movies, but anything?
Sports was kind of off limits to me. I know I said there were no challenges in my childhood, but one thing that most people don't know is that as a kid, I guess I don't know how to describe it, but I was diagnosed, I guess is the best word, with a rare joint disorder.
Okay.
Which there's so little known about it that I don't even know if I still would classify as having it. It's that there was so little information about it. My mom certainly has it, and I think they were therefore saying, "Oh, your son has it as well."
Yeah, like it's a genetic thing.
Exactly, and they didn't have research on kids, and so I grew up being told, "Oh, you can't play football, you can't play, team sports."
Yeah,
they did a little baseball, little league baseball for me when I was first growing up. But in high school and middle school, I did not play sports, so that was very isolating at times. Because I went to a very small school, so everyone was pretty much in a sport.
Yeah.
But now I wouldn't classify me as having that disorder. I played soccer, intramural soccer, in college, and I played goalie.
Nice.
And I got kicked. All sorts of injuries that would have been devastating for someone with the disorder, and I'm still fine.
That's good. That's awesome. That's cool. I mean, it's always sucks. I'm sure there were times when that wasn't a fun time, or you maybe wanted to participate but couldn't.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I went to a small school, so I went to the same school from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Nice.
It was something that my parents really wanted, and it was a private school, so it was great education. But because it was so small, you don't have as much of a population of people to draw from to be your friend and to draw similar interests with. And when everyone's in sports after school, that kind of dwindles your friend group, or the easy thing that you can identify with someone that you have a connection with.
Yeah, sure. What did you say you wanted to be when you grew up?
In high school, I wanted to be an Imagineer for Disney. So I wanted to be the creative person designing rides for the parks.
Nice.
Yeah. That clearly has not manifested yet. It's still in the back of my, it's something that I haven't given completely up on. It's still like, oh, that'd be really cool to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I just didn't build the skills for it. You know, I think I felt, looking at their product, looking at what the final product was, how perfect a designed a Disney themed area or ride is, I didn't have the confidence that I would get to that final product.
Yeah.
That inner critic chimed in and said, oh, wow, look at their perfection. You're not going to be there.
Yeah.
Where I was completely overlooking the fact that there's a whole time period of failure, of not being perfect. And so I didn't build the skills in order to truly give it a true run for that dream.
Sure. Where do you think that like mindset came from, or like that perspective kind of came from?
I'm sure it came from multiple places, just how, maybe from society in general, looking, especially if you look at the products coming out of the Walt Disney Company, like they truly are making they're putting their best product forward. They're not putting out something that's second rate. And so you kind of, when that is your standard, is the best of the best, and that's where you want to be, then you're measuring yourself up to the best of the best.
Sure.
And, I was in art class. They actually, because I was in a small school, I was in an art class by myself, and they basically said they knew I wanted to be an Imagineer. They said, design a theme park. And I said, this is the best thing ever. And I did it. And like in my imagination, I had all these things planned out, and in my mind, I could see it, and like the art that I had to create for it. And then when it actually was on the paper, I'm like, this is not as good as I thought it would be.
Yeah, totally.
And
isn't that the
not how
story?
I thought?
Yeah, the mind is crazy. I can definitely understand that, where you like have this idea in your head of how it's supposed to go, and then what comes out isn't quite there. I guess that's like the like artist's dilemma, right? Of like trying to get whatever's in your head onto paper to make it look the way you imagined it.
Absolutely. And to having the perseverance to keep going, and for trial and error, and be confident in yourself that you are going to get to the end goal. I remember in that art class, they wanted me to create a portfolio, because that's what you would be handing in if you were applying for a job, and to be creative with the portfolio. And I said, okay, I'm going to make a portfolio that's never been done before, and I'm going to make it a round book that has like a pole in the middle, that like a telescope that stretches out, and there would be magnets, so you flip it up just so it's weird and like completely something no one has ever done before. And here I am trying to make this in an art class that only has limited supplies, and all I had was like a wooden dowel. Yeah. And it's like, well, that doesn't expand. Where are the magnets? Where, you know? And they're like,
it's a cool idea, though.
Of course. Yeah, of course, I didn't think about when I was making everything that there would be a big old circle in the middle of the art, too. So, like I drew a picture of someone, and it's like they've got a hole in their face. Yeah. It's like, that doesn't work.
That's part of the creative process, though. I mean, yeah, that's a cool idea. I mean, that's the creative process. That's cool. I don't know. I like that idea.
I don't think, in the education that I was getting, it was fantastic, but somewhere along the way, someone didn't tell me like, oh, it's okay that you fail and you get back up. Like that was, part of what was so, to bring it back to Invisible Children for just a second, was just so, mind opening for me, was, all the jump first, fear later, and what was it inside the T-shirts that were printed? Live a life that demands explanation. Was
Yep.
that it?
Yep. That was it. Yeah. Live a life that demands an explanation. I haven't thought about that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, just, being okay with putting your best foot forward and it not living up to your expectations. And the one piece of advice I will never forget coming out of Invisible Children was Jed. I don't remember where we were, what we were doing, but he just dropped this little gem of a nugget. He was just like, do not expect anything from a situation except to learn from it. And I was like, it took me a while to like truly wrap my head around that, but it's just like, you're right. What holds you back in this creative process or in life, relationships, is projecting your expectation on an outcome. And then when it doesn't live up to that expectation, it's not right. Just get rid of it. Mm-hmm. Instead of living in the moment and being pleasantly surprised by the outcome.
Right. Or even saying, well, it's not good enough yet.
Well, that too.
Absolutely. I feel like that can be a part of it too. Again, you talked about like you're your own worst critic, and I'm the same way, and you go through, you get off the podcast or you put out a piece of content. I get this like analysis by paralysis, paralysis by analysis type of like mentality sometimes where I'm like, because of that image that I have in my head, and I'm like, well, I want it to be perfect, and I don't want to put out something that's not like to my standard or my quality. And then it's like, well, but it's a work in progress, and it's like continuing to like take one step and making moves and taking those steps to get closer and closer.
Exactly. This episode of the CrazyFaceUno Podcast is much better than your first one.
Yeah.
But if you had judged the first one by how great you're doing now, then you would never have started in the first place.
Right. Exactly. It's
so
like,
you kind of have to, take it for what it, the first episode was. Mm-hmm. It was a great first step, but it was a learning process, and it's still a learning process.
Right. Well, and you take different things each time, and like, oh, I'm going, again, like knowing that I want to not put as much value on the work you're doing and that part, because it is a thing, right? Like in people's minds, and some people aren't content with where they're at, kind of like our conversation of like, well, what's the story I have to tell? But it's like not about what you're doing, it's about who you are. And I think that when you can, I don't know, just adjust, so as I'm going through this process and finding like, oh, I want to know who you are. I want to tell the story of who you are. I want to understand you on a deeper level, on a more vulnerable level. And so it's not about the work you're doing. That's like a 10 minutes of the hour and a half that we talk about, and it's like, that's all well and good, but there's so much more, so for someone to say no to this process because of one little thing, and then how can I bring that in and show people that it's more than just what you're doing, and I think that's just part of the process, that's just one little element of making adjustments as you go and continuing to evolve and to grow into things. When I first started this, it was all about inspiring others to do good and make a difference in our local and global community. That was my little catchphrase, my little, and it's changed as I went along. I'm like, it's less about that, and it's more about the story that's being told, and I'm telling stories, and I believe that everybody has a story, and that's the inspiring part, that's inspiring others. But let's tell the story. Let's go the story route, and let's gear everything and kind of shift focuses into telling people's story.
Everyone has a story. We all have more in common than we don't have in common. We're all living, breathing, trying to bring joy to our lives and to the people that surround us and we love. So
exactly,
we just have to be reminded of that.
Exactly. And I hope that, as people continue to listen, and that they are reminded and they can reflect on their own selves. And that's the beautiful thing. I got off the podcast, I recorded one on Sunday, and I got off the podcast, and the guy I was talking to, he's like, this is like therapy. Like, this is like therapeutic for me. And I'm like, dude, I know. Like, I'm like 90 podcasts in. Like, it's therapy for me too. It's very therapeutic to talk about and to think about and be like, oh, it's really interesting to see how you got to where you are, and like the mentality and the mental game, the physical game, like all the different parts that go into overcoming and being, quote, finding yourself, or like, being who you are today. And I think that for me, like listening to everybody's story, or listening like to our conversation even now, I'm like reflecting back on that. I'm trying to relate to it and trying to find that piece that I don't know, that I can relate to, and I hope that other people do that too. I think that's the cool part, is like relatability, of relating to the process. And that's what I mean by the fact that we all go through childhood. It looks different. You like Power Rangers. Well, maybe somebody didn't, maybe somebody watched Transformers instead, or, whatever it was, but they're like, oh yeah, I totally had those shows, so then now that's the relatability part of kind of finding our unifying ground amongst everyone's story, regardless of our belief system, our political views, our, differences, but finding the similarities.
And it truly, my belief is when it's an unexpected commonality, that's when it's the most impactful.
Yes.
When you are taken out of your moment to say, oh, I do connect with this person on a deeper level than I anticipated, and you weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
That's when it truly is ingrained in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Dude, let's look at like middle school, high school, that adolescent time. If we kind of look at that, what would you say, like, what kind of student were you?
I was one that wanted to get good grades, for sure. My mom's a teacher.
Okay.
So I didn't want to come home with poor grades.
Yeah.
I did expect to do well. I was told that I was gifted and intelligent, and I was tested, very well. And, that's great to hear as a kid, but looking back, I think it was kind of a hindrance as well. And learning for trial and error.
Yeah.
It was almost as if I didn't do well, there was nothing that I could do about it, because I just was never going to do well. If I did well, then it was obviously because of my innate ability.
Yeah. You're never challenged necessarily beyond.
Certainly there were challenges in school. I remember writing a 20-page paper in history class in high school, and looking back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I pulled that off in high school.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a transition to go from high school into college, because there you were just left to your own devices to learn, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so, that mindset still was prevalent. Well, if I don't get it now, if it's just not coming to me, then it's not happening.
Yeah.
So, but I graduated with a degree in marketing and a minor in sociology, and just from there been doing work that makes it. I try and look for things that make an impact. Invisible Children completely reshaped and contextualized what it meant to do work.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, it shook you. It challenged. I don't know. It set the bar pretty high for a work environment, for purpose in your work, for value as an employee, camaraderie, you know, the teamwork, integrity. Man, the words could, the buzzwords, the key phrases could just keep coming and coming and coming.
For me, it was a sense of community.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't see that everywhere that you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that, you know, it was great to listen to your conversation with Timmy and saying how much y'all have struggled coming out of Invisible Children and kind of finding your way, because the bar was set so high that not every place is like Invisible Children, and you have to find your happiness in the present and not dwell on the past so much, that there can be these amazing moments and opportunities that rival what we had in San Diego, if you are open to them and not living in the past.
Right.
But I certainly have not, I haven't found a community like that in the 10 years since I've left. And, you know, you still look for it.
Yeah. Even when you try not to, even when you try to come with fresh eyes, it's like there's a piece of you that's like always hungry for that unity, that relationship, that that bond. And I don't know that, you know, I mean, I remember Margie said it, Margie Dillenberg. Hopefully we can have her on sometime. But she said it at one of like the end, you know, I think it was when we were kind of downsizing and we had that big reunion. I don't know if you came back to that in San Diego, but
I did. I was there.
Yeah, and we're sitting there at Mount Soledad.
I slept on the office floor.
Nice.
That night.
Nice. Yeah. So we're like sitting there at Mount Soledad, you know, kind of like reminiscing, and I remember Margie got up there, and it had been said multiple times, but she said it again, and it was one of those sayings, was like, you're gonna leave here. We're all gonna like try to like find this place again, you know, and like try to find this other things, and it's gonna be hard, and you're not gonna find it. And I remember sitting there and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know, like, yeah, it's gonna be hard, like, we'll be fine, you know, like, whatever. And then now I look back and I'm like, whew, boy, was she right, you know? And
oh, absolutely.
Like, whoa, man, I've been looking for it for a long time. And yeah, I don't know that it'll ever exist the same way. And I think it's just, that was a special time, and we got to be part of something very special, and not to forget about it, but in an effort to, like, I think it's our responsibility to bring that to wherever we are, you know?
Absolutely. You know, I've been in this transition phase reading some Brene Brown, you know, the Gifts of Imperfection, Darren Greatly.
Yep.
You know, and
Darren Greatly was great.
Vulnerability's always been one of those buzzwords. You know, I've certainly listened to her TED Talk before and all that good stuff. But, you know, reflecting back on Invisible Children, there was I had a level of vulnerability that I had never had before, and I don't think I really realized until now that I tapped into, because I felt accepted by the community. And when I came home, even my best friends, I had never been that vulnerable to, and that was what was missing, was having that group that you felt like you
shared with,
you shared through a challenge with, and that you could be open and vulnerable and be yourself.
Yeah, and they accepted you and they brought you in. It's that like, you're free to be who you are, and who you are was accepted, and then you're able to like grow from there, you know, like through all the different hard things. And that was like, relationship wise, you're accepted, you're loved by the people that are around you. And it was like it's just different. There's no way, it's so hard to describe, but.
Well, for the listeners too, I mean, I'm sure you've covered this about Invisible Children, but it wasn't always rainbows and sunshine with everyone. Yeah, we weren't all running around through Balboa Park, skipping and holding hands and singing
that
songs.
happened?
I mean, it happened. Not every day. It happened, but, there were still, there were fights. There were disagreements. People didn't see eye to eye, but I think at the end of the day, what truly made it such a community is all these people had a love for people that they've never seen before,
mm-hmm.
Across the ocean on another continent. They had love for people in northern Uganda and the DRC, and therefore, even when there were disagreements and people weren't washing dishes or taking too much time in the one bathroom that we were sharing, there was still love
mm-hmm.
as the underlying factor, the underlying part of this group.
Yeah, we for the greater good, we maybe took a few lumps for the greater good of what we were trying to accomplish and gave each other a little bit more grace and I don't know, a little more love because of what we were trying to do, for sure. 100%.
Absolutely. Well, if you're loving someone across the world, then you're going to love the people that you're sharing a house with.
That's the goal. Yeah, exactly. Yep. 100%. And
even now, I was reflecting on it, what I was going to say about Invisible Children and how it ties into your goal of everyone has a story, that, it truly, if I ran into someone and they happen to have been an Invisible Children supporter, or they'd worked with them, if I'd never known them before, I would instantly be connected. I would know their story, and I would be more willing to, or not willing, but open to bringing them into my circle, into my life, and helping them in whatever way, shape, or form. And it's really all about finding that unexpected commonality, what we share, what we believe in, and looking beyond the things that make us different to make a difference.
Nailed it. Spot on. Completely agree. Yeah, and that camaraderie you always found, it's like a trust that you had with someone because you knew their character based on the fact that they were there and they showed up. And there was just these little pieces that you can always saw and felt. And the ones that weren't there for the right reasons, kind of, they filtered themselves out,
Absolutely.
Did you have a lot of friends growing up, like in high school, middle school?
I would say no.
No.
To be completely honest, yeah.
Did you have a core group that or core group?
I had a core little group in elementary school. And like I said, I went to the same school from kindergarten to 12th grade. So, you didn't have a lot of influx of new students. Some left. And so I remember being really close to a bunch of kids from around third grade. Things started to change where, people were more identified by playing sports. And when I didn't play those sports, my friendships shifted.
Yeah.
So, and not to knock my parents, but, they were, my mom is very family oriented. So
yeah,
we always did things with my first cousin, her sister, and, anyone who was in our extended family. But, no one really, their friends didn't really come over with kids. So, that is something that, through time, you have friends that fall in and out of your life. But, there's still the core people that I know I can go to.
Yeah.
But, you would, again, coming out of Invisible Children, you're like, man, there were so many more friends there.
Yep. Yep. For sure. Definitely. It sounds like you had a pretty close relationship with your parents. How would you describe your relationship with your parents, with your family?
now or back then?
Either or.
Either or. Well, my dad commuted a lot for work. He would be relocated. He's been probably relocated to Houston 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah.
So that certainly puts a strain on, how close you are to a person when they're spending 5 days out of the week in another city.
Yeah.
So I grew up with my mom a good bit. Now we still live in New Orleans, so I still see them a bunch. I think I'm still trying to get my mom to realize I am an adult, especially because with that 12-year age difference with my brother, she was still in that mom mode. I have to, be the answer or provide or have assistance instead of letting trial and error in adulthood take hold.
Sure. That makes sense. And I mean, I think that's just a parent thing. I think parents have trouble letting go sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, I am still kind of adjusting to the fact that my brother is an adult. He's 22 now.
Yeah.
So I took care of him as a kid. So when he was a kid, I was in middle school, high school, I took care of him. So, I'm even having to let go of that. Right.
What led you to choose, marketing and sociology in college?
Marketing was the creative side of business. When I kind of started doubting whether or not I could actually make it to be a Disney Imagineer, doubting that. First off, I mean, there aren't a lot of open positions to be a Disney Imagineer, and a lot of those jobs are engineers, being able to design the ride from an engineering standpoint. And I knew I didn't want to do the math part. I wanted to do the creative part. And so those jobs are few and far between. So I just kind of gave up on that. But I said, you know what, I still want to be creative. I would still probably like to work for the Walt Disney Company. So this route makes the most sense. Yeah. And then I started collecting sociology credits. I realized I wasn't that far off from that sociology minor, so I took an extra semester, wrapped that up, and it was kind of that serendipitous type of thing for me, because I do generally have this great interest in how people interact. And part of me is thinking about going back to school and taking more psychology classes, because those were some of my favorites as well in college, just to learn more about how the human mind works and how we connect to people in our environments.
Yeah. That's cool. Did you have anybody or, someone that sticks out to you that was like an inspiration to you growing up?
I think there were, certainly people that I didn't know. I would certainly say in high school, since I was studying art and being an Imagineer, Walt Disney would have been an inspiration for me. In fact, that 20-page paper that I mentioned earlier was a biography on Walt Disney, and my history teacher hated it, and I did that on purpose. I knew he would hate the subject, and I was like, you're going to have to give me an A on this because I did it right. I did it to your directions, but you're going to hate it. Yeah. Which was fantastic. There are so many people that I admire now. So many people from Invisible Children, Jason Russell, Jedediah Jenkins, to this day, high up there on my list. Just such wonderful people, and then got introduced to Bob Goff, and the list goes on and on and on. But yeah, in terms of someone that was or is in my life, there has been my former boss when I worked at LSU Student Media has consistently stayed in my life and has been a mentor to me and consistently calls and checks up on me.
Yeah.
And I know that is a gift that not everyone gets, and it's been amazing. I just recently sent my resume and cover letter for him to take a look at, and he gave me advice on it. And it's just always nice to have someone that you can call up who's kind of outside your circle, but is in your corner.
Right.
And know that they have your back.
Yeah, those people are huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think they're some of the most important people. It's those people that are like outside your family that you both respect and trust and can just talk to and bounce ideas and thoughts and have conversations with. Sorry, the lawn crew is out weed whacking the pond lake around our apartment here, and they're quite loud.
I'm not hearing it. As long as it doesn't bother the audience, it's not bothering me.
Hey, it's all good. Can't do anything about it. Guess the grass has got to get cut. So.
Absolutely.
What thinking about college, what's one of your favorite memories? What's one of the memories that kind of pops in your mind when you think of college?
That's a good question. I don't know what the rating on your podcast is, but, talk about college stories. No.
Go for it. We're fair game. Fair game. No, say whatever you need to say.
My first thought really was, I did Invisible Children after college. I know some people were still in college or pre-college.
Yeah, I was after too.
Yeah, so my first taste of having a community was at LSU. I started at Tulane University, and Katrina hit after my Hurricane Katrina. I should be more specific. I'm saying that as if I'm still in New Orleans. Everyone's like, Katrina.
Yeah.
We know that.
I knew exactly what you're saying.
So I was at Tulane University, which is in New Orleans, and it closed down for a semester, and the school wasn't, when I came back, it was in disarray. And, they still had classes, but, it wasn't the same school that I enrolled in, and it was very expensive. So I transferred to LSU, and even going from the small school, you would think I would have found my community, but I guess because I was living close to home, being near my brother, to just being an hour away in Baton Rouge, I was able to find a community at LSU Student Media, and that was just a game changer for me. I felt connected into this bigger whole, and I think that's kind of, well, first off, if I hadn't have gone to LSU, I wouldn't have been a part of Invisible Children.
Yeah.
Because I met a former roadie at LSU. And
okay.
He told me about, so that's that connection there. But having this group of people that we were working in a basement, doing advertising and
cool.
Putting out something, creating something that was a small part of a bigger piece.
Yeah.
Our cherished memories.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. That's really cool. What did you do right after college? Did you go straight to Invisible Children then?
So I'll tell the story of how I made it to Invisible Children then, because I guess I've never shared that, at least with you. I was working for LSU Student Media. I graduated, and I got a call from that director, who is still my mentor, about 2 weeks after graduation, and said that the person in the front office, who was a professional, wasn't a student, just suddenly resigned, and they need someone to fill in the position. And I certainly was not qualified for the job, but they thought I could do it, with the help of others. And so I went back. I moved to New Orleans and then moved back to Baton Rouge to work in this temporary job. And on the day I found out that they hired someone else. So I worked there for about 10 months. They interviewed me to continue on, and then they interviewed some people who actually had professional experience in this role. And it was a new director of student media, so my mentor was no longer there. Someone new came in and said, you know what, I want someone fresh. And so the day I found out I was not rehired, do you know Matt Bruce?
I know the name, but I don't know that I've ever met him. Yeah.
He was working at LSU Student Media. He hadn't brought in his timesheet to me. He was out of town, and I was giving him a hard time about it. And he was like, I'm sorry, I was in New York. I was working with this organization called Revo. And I was like, yeah, man, I know. Don't worry about it. But tell me more about Revo.
Yeah.
And he told me about what his work was there. Then he told me about Invisible Children. I said, that really speaks to me. Like, I would love to be in an organization like that.
Yeah.
In a community like that. And he said, well, funny enough, they just posted for an internship. If you're interested, I can reach out and put in your application and tell them good things about you. And I said, well, funny enough, Matt, I'm no longer working here anymore, so please do.
Yeah, that's cool. That's like perfect.
Yeah. So 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to San Diego.
That's awesome. That's like a quick turnaround. Mine was similar in some ways, but like it fast. It kind of came together and just kind of worked out. But that's cool. That's a really fun story.
It was one of those, I wasn't a jump first, fear later type of person, but it felt right, And when I first showed up and went into the roadie house, and, it was like there was a heat wave that hit San Diego, and I'm like, all right, it's not bad. It's not bad compared to New Orleans, but so are we going to kick on the air conditioner in this house? Because it's kind of sweltering in here, and they're like, there's no air conditioning here. I'm like, what did I get into?
Yeah, that's a good time.
I distinctly remember a friend of mine calling and asking, how's it going? And I said, you know what, man, this house is not what I imagined. It was within the first week. Cameron had been on vacation, just something I'd already planned, so I wasn't doing any work. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to ask him. This is a job that I could probably do from anywhere because it's social media. It's all online. I might just ask him if I can do this from home, and not be in this house, and not, because there's so many people, and it's just something that I wasn't used to. But fast forward to the end, when everyone was coming off the road, when you were coming back, it was, y'all had just came back, and some of the interns were not as happy with the living situation because we were used to fewer people in the house. And they're just like, I wish the roadies were back on the road, or they just send them home now. The tour's over. And I'm like, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
Bring in more people. I was completely changed from the first week that I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, man, 65 people in the house together, no air conditioning.
And we started with probably like 20 people as the intern class.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. It's fun. It's you learn a lot. For sure.
Absolutely.
When you left Invisible Children, you've talked about you kind of done a few different things. So what are some of the things, work-wise you've done kind of to bring you up to date?
Bring up to now. I have done a lot of retail, to be honest. It's always it was always mindset, like, I'm going to take this job as temporary to give me, I don't want to get into something that's going to entrench me in the job where it will not be easy to leave. You know, here's a temporary placeholder until the next great thing comes. Until I find my calling, until I find that place that truly speaks to me and feels like home, like Invisible Children did. So you know, I've been on and off in retail for a while now.
Cool.
I worked at the Louisiana Children's Museum for a while.
Nice.
Did my work at Capital One. I helped start a tuxedo and suit store here. For a gentleman that has since I left I started it, so I can give myself some credit there, but they really exploded.
Nice.
After leaving. Yeah, it's fantastic for them. A great family. They deserve, you know, even more success than what they're seeing right now. What else? I actually have my resume right here. This is perfect. I was an assistant property manager for a while. I did some extra work on movies and TV.
That's fun.
Just for fun. Yeah. When that business was huge in New Orleans, it's kind of fallen off a little bit here, but we had some really big movies filming here, so you got to go hop on set for a little bit, get paid really well.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's cool. Well, dude, I have, you know, we're at the 81 minutes here. I've got 4 more questions. Again, these are
we can speed them or
say that again.
Whatever you want. It's your show. We can speed through them. I can go quickly.
Hey, whatever. No, we're good on time. This is a perfect time to kind of get into them, but I'm gonna kick them off. So my first question is, what are you most proud of to date?
Most proud of to date, like to date.
Yes.
Oh wow, that's a tough question.
No, I told you. Save the best for last. There's 4 good ones.
Yeah.
Bring the heat at the end.
Man, you know, I guess I'm becoming proud of who I am as a person.
Good for you, man.
And not tying it to the successes and what's like. Literally, I just said, like, my resume is sitting right in front of me, and you know, I quickly, when you ask that question, like, ooh, what do I have here?
Yeah.
And, you know, just all of the struggles, all of the dreams that haven't been fulfilled have led me to this place regardless, and just trying to be the best person that I can be to as many people as possible.
I love it. That's really cool, man. That's something to be proud of. You should be proud of that and who you're becoming and the person you're trying to be. So, I commend you for that, for sure.
I really appreciate it.
What are you looking forward to most in the future? You know, obviously looking for, you know, something, you're in this limbo kind of stage, I guess, in some ways, but what are your goals? What are your ambitions? What are you looking forward to?
You know, I'm interested to see where this period of growth goes, because this is from the beginning of 2020 where I've started to realize that I haven't had the confidence in myself to go after things. I've been in my way, and I'm trying to remove that impediment. And that has been a big theme right now. And I feel like, honestly, like, your listeners are probably going to listen to hear some of these stories that I've brought up, and it was a theme of lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I'm going to sum it up into a night and put a nice little bow on it for everyone, that is what I'm focusing on and working on and trying to get out of my way to find whatever it is that is the next step.
Yeah.
I do have the big lofty dreams, you know, starting my own thing. So you are 100% an inspiration in that, of going out and doing it, and just doing it every day, doing something that you love doing.
Yeah.
and putting it out there and hoping for the best.
Well, thank you. I'm here to help you, too, man. So if there's anything I can do to help you, in the future, please reach out. Let me know. I want to be available. I want to be able to, make a difference in any way I can.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We'll see where it goes. We'll see where the journey takes both of us.
Hell yeah.
But I'll be honest. I had an idea for years and years and years, something similar in podcast style to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Going out and just having like set questions, a theme of some sort, and asking people on the street, tell me a story about XYZ.
Yeah.
And putting that podcast out. Came across Beautiful Anonymous. I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast.
I think I am, actually, but I need to...
Great.
I'm going to write it down.
Great show. It's comedian Chris Gethard.
Okay.
He puts out a phone number. Random people call in. It's anonymous. No names. You tell your story for an hour. That's it. He hangs up after an hour. And so then when I saw your podcast, I'm like, man, everyone's doing these story podcasts. I guess there's no room left.
Interesting.
But there's always,
yeah.
there's
I don't think I have.
room for something new and creative.
Yeah, I don't think I have heard of that, but I got to check that out. It sounds right up my alley.
Comes out every Tuesday.
Nice.
It's yours is. I mean, y'all are certainly different. Y'all are certainly doing different things here. There's room for both, but he's. It's interesting to hear what he's learned, kind of like what you're talking about, what you've learned over time about the human condition after talking to so many people.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. Dude, do you ever think about your legacy?
I do think about my legacy all the time, especially coming out of Invisible Children. Like I've wanted to do something that leaves a mark that makes the world a better place than the way I've when you leave the world.
Yeah,
make that positive impact. And typically, like, when I think of legacy, I think of something that is tangible and I can point to and say, I did this for the world. And, I'm kind of realizing too that, and to take it a step back, because I feel like I can't point to that right now, I felt like I haven't been leaving a legacy.
Sure.
But I do think that we leave legacies in the lives that we lead if we're doing good towards others, if we're being a positive influence and leaving a positive impact on others. You may not see it, and but it's there.
Well said. I agree with you.
In fact, it actually brought up a story if we have time.
Yeah, we're a little short on time, actually.
Okay.
And I got one more for you, and then we'll close things out. But looking back, what advice would you tell little Andrew?
That's a great question. Put myself out there more and be confident in yourself. Tell yourself that you are enough, that you are worthy enough for great things, and to take the risks and go explore, meet people.
I love it.
Yeah, get your shoes dirty.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, for sure. Dude, Andrew, I am sorry to cut it short. We're at the 89th minute. Great. We've got 1 minute, but I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, this is awesome. I wanted to do a podcast, so this is pretty cool.
This is awesome. Well, I'm going to close this out, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much, Shane.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for listening. Your contribution helps us tell more stories like Andrew's and the stories just like yours. Speaking of contributions, please visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. comment, like our post, share the podcast with your friends, your family, or just random strangers on the street. We're welcome to everyone. Please visit CrazyFaceUno.com. You can check out our merchandise. We've got things you can buy, and that helps us tell more stories like Andrew's and stories just like yours. So thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. I love you. Peace.